What is artificial intelligence? So, artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science that aims to create systems that are capable of performing tasks that would normally require human effort and intelligence. And these tasks can include things like understanding natural language, recognizing patterns, solving problems, learning from experience, and even making decisions. And some of the approaches, included in machine learning, some of the approaches in AI include machine learning, right? And this is where systems learn from data to improve their performance. Deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning that uses neural networks. And the machine learning, the deep learning that most of us are familiar with at this point is, for example, Chat GPT, where you input text and you get very human-like responses, and that you can even train in real time this chatbot to provide more accurate responses. A couple of other types of artificial intelligence include natural language processing, which enables these artificial intelligence systems to understand and generate human language. And then computer vision, which sounds very science fiction-y, but it enables artificial intelligence to understand and interpret visual data. Now, there are lots more, and I'm not going to be giving like a graduate level seminar on the details of each one of them, but I will be going into some of the details of natural language processing and semantic analysis. Now, one of the things about AI is that research, particularly research in both nationally representative surveys, but also in healthcare systems, has found that these models have a pretty high accuracy in predicting suicide attempts. Now, what these studies have done is they have looked at data, and they know which people have attempted suicide. And so they've been able to create these models and then test them out to see how well they have done at predicting. And this might seem like it's cheating, right? Because you already know who has attempted. But what's true is that the traditional approaches to predicting suicidal behaviors, which has primarily been identifying risk factors, has been shown to not work very well. Joe Franklin and colleagues published a now classic article in 2017, which looked at 50 years worth of data on risk factors and found that they did no better than chance at identifying suicidal behaviors. Which doesn't mean that risk factors and particularly warning signs are not useful with any one individual, but as a group, they didn't really pan out. Now, there are a couple of different types of categories of AI, right? You can think about AI in a narrow sense or in a general sense, right? And a narrow sense of AI would be AI that's designed to perform a pretty narrow task. And these are things that we do all the time with Siri and Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa, where we say, what's the weather? Or turn on a light, or call mom. These sorts of commands require the computer program to recognize the prompts and to be able to respond. But it can't tell the difference between me saying, turn on the lights, and me saying, I said, turn on the lights, right? It doesn't understand the emotional tone. It doesn't understand what's going on with me. It's very narrow, right? Now, this doesn't mean that that's not useful. And in fact, kind of this narrow sense of AI actually holds a lot of promise for psychosocial services, care services, care provision. For example, this kind of narrow use of AI has been used in customer service for a long time. So if I called up my my cell phone provider, my mobile provider, and I was really angry about something that was going on, there are real-time analytics that are happening that can analyze my vocal tone, that can analyze my words, and give customer service agents prompts that are more likely to help to resolve or address my questions or concerns. And so whenever you hear something that says, this call may be recorded for training and education purposes, or something to that effect, it doesn't mean that your conversation is going to be recorded and then later on at a staff meeting people are going to sit around and listen to it and be like, okay, so Pedro, did you hear that? Maybe next time you want to do this differently. What it means is that in real time your words and your voice is being analyzed, and prompts are being thrown up to the customer service rep that says, it sounds like this person, and obviously I'm paraphrasing, but basically, it sounds like this person would be really satisfied if you gave them a $25 discount on their next bill. And so then the customer service rep wouldn't have any understanding, wouldn't need to understand why did the AI say, oh, $25 off is going to be helpful. But then they might say, oh, I'm so sorry for this. What we'd like to do is we'd like to give you $25 off on your next bill. Well, as the customer, I'm like, wow, that's exactly, that is actually exactly what is going to make me feel better. Now, how does this have to do with social services? I mean, other than sort of this idea of neoliberalism and kind of the commodification of social services. Well, those of us who have been in social services know that folks get really frustrated with services. And if there is a way to better and more quickly address their concerns, then it's better for us, right? The counselor or the caseworker, and it's much better for the client or the consumer. And so these are ways that it can be used. Now, this more general sense of AI, is this idea that artificial intelligence is going to be able to understand, learn, apply knowledge in different contexts, solve complex problems, adapt to new situations, and basically do things that people can do possibly better, right? That's one of the concerns about AI. Now, much like this image here, there's a ton of information about any individual person, and AI holds the potential to help us sort out what's important, right? What's signal, and what's unimportant, what's noise. Now, it's not that there are some things that are inherently unimportant with a person, but in a given context with whatever's going on, some things are more important than others. And this is why when we're talking about suicide prevention, we have developed these risk factors. We've developed these warning signs. So if I'm talking with a kid who says, yeah, I don't think that people would care if I lived or I died. So that sentence in and of itself is concerning. But if they then also said, I haven't been sleeping well, I deactivated my social media accounts, and I just got suspended for threatening a teacher, right? All of those things together suggest that this kid is likely going to do something to end their life in the very near future. Why do I know this? Part of it's research, but also part of it is that when you put these things together, it means something. The context means something important in terms of suicide risk. And so if I had talked to a kid who wasn't talking about being suicidal, who was known for getting into arguments, for threatening teachers, if they told me that they threatened their teacher, that piece of information might not be particularly important for that moment. But in the context of talking about wanting to end their life, in the context of not getting much sleep, of cutting off from social situations, that's exactly the kind of thing that could let me know that this kid is at imminent risk for suicide.